Greetings, this is Father Brendan Helms, priest in charge of St. Monica's Anglican Church. Welcome back to our series on classical theism and the divine liturgy. In this session, we're going to be looking at two classical attributes of God, God's goodness and God's perfection. We'll start with God's goodness. The term goodness, or just good, is used so often in our modern day language and just basic conversations that when we apply that term to God, we probably do not realize the full implications of the affirmation that God is good. Last night, or maybe even if you just want to think back to your most recent meal, you might have said you had some good food. If you have a friend who's experiencing some health crisis, you might have said you know a good doctor. Maybe you're a football fan and you watched a football game on TV, or maybe even went to a game in person and afterwards you said that was a good game. And then at the same time, we say that God is good. Do we really mean to intend the same thing by good in each of these statements? There is, of course, a commonality between the use of the term good in each of those, but we should obviously consider that we don't mean exactly the same thing in each of those four usages. But this is where it's important to define what we mean by this very basic but essential term, good. In classical theology, most notably within the tradition of Thomism, by good we simply mean that which has being. This definition is quite simple, but at the same time, we will see that it has profound implications. Now, before we get into that, I think it would be helpful here to offer an example from our sensible earthly world before we go to apply the term of good to God. Imagine you are a doctor. You're sitting in your office and a 30-year-old man walks in. And this 30-year-old man, he has perfect eyesight. He has a full head of hair. He has all of his limbs. He is 6 feet tall. We'll say he's about 170 pounds. He exercises regularly, so he has a good proportion of healthy, lean muscle mass, and he has above average intelligence. You do your visit with this individual, he leaves a room, and shortly thereafter, another 30-year-old man enters your office. This individual, though, is nearsighted. He has male pattern baldness. Though he has all of his limbs, he has a deformity in his right arm such that there's a little bit of weakness in that arm. He's 6 foot tall. He weighs 250 pounds. And because he doesn't exercise regularly, he does not have a healthy proportion of lean muscle mass, and he has average intelligence. You do your visit with this individual, he leaves the room. And afterwards, you reflect upon these two 30-year-old men. And someone comes in and asks the question about them, which one of these individuals has more goodness? Well, there's an obvious answer to this, and that is that the first man has more goodness than the second. He has more of the attributes that a human should have that reflect in the most basic philosophical understanding of being that is related to goodness than the second individual. We see that the first individual has more attributes of healthiness, more attributes of just our basic foundational notion of what a human should have. Now, at this point, we need to go back to an earlier video in this series when we affirm that God, unlike creatures, is being or is existence. Humans have existence, but we are not existence or being. So as humans, we have goodness, but we are not goodness. But since God is being, this means that he is goodness. Then we can take this one step further. Since God is being and goodness itself, it follows from this that God is perfect. God, unlike creatures, is completely metaphysically or ontologically good. So he is perfect. Now, as humans, we can lose or acquire various aspects of goodness, as can all other creatures. So a human cannot, at least in our natural existence, be perfect. Think about your own life, for example. You started as a baby, and you are wherever you are today. And along this journey, you have acquired new knowledge. There certainly has been aspects, at least maybe of some memories that you've lost. You have grown in strength, but at the same time, depending upon how old you are, you may have begun to lose strength. Or even you have, as an adult, maybe you were in a series of life where you were exercising regularly, and so you gained strength, and then you fell out of that, and so you've lost strength. So this is the life as a human. We go up and down in our gaining and losing of goodness and in terms of our perfection. But God, as goodness itself, is perfect. He neither gains nor loses any goodness. He is the fullness of being or existence itself. Now, it's with this in mind that we should ask ourselves, if God is goodness itself and in turn perfect, in the most metaphysically robust sense possible, how should we worship him? Now, I will contend that the only forms of worship that truly provide the possible reverence due to God, due to the God of the universe, that is goodness itself and perfect being, is found either in the divine liturgy of the East, the traditional Latin Mass, and the missals of the Anglo-Catholic tradition. All other forms of worship, whether a Novus Ordo Mass in the Roman Catholic Church, a prayer book Mass within the Anglican tradition, or a Protestant worship service, either doesn't fully recognize the goodness and perfection of God, or is actually focused primarily on some human, whether a preacher, a choir, a band, or maybe even the congregation itself. Now, sermons are great. And as far as music goes, when it properly worships the perfect God of the universe, that's wonderful as well. But outside of the traditional masses, we are set up to focus on humanity, not the divine. So I would invite you, wherever you are, to find a local body of Christians who every Sunday give proper latria, or in English, worship of the perfectly good God of the universe. Thank you.